Welcome to special regional session. I'm pleased to meet you all at this beautiful and peaceful city, Zaragoza. It's an honor for me to moderate this session, and I'd like to thank the organizer, particularly Josefina, and then co-convener ESCAP in particular for giving me this opportunity to take chair. My name is Jong Seun of UNOSD, UN Office for Sustainable Development. I'd like to, before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself, my office briefly. My office, UNOSD, is located in Incheon, Republic of Korea, and then it became operational in 2012. And then it is under the UN DESA, Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Our mandate is to support the capacity development of developing countries in terms of sustainable development. Our mandate is quite broad, but specifically we are establishing knowledge management. We are hosting some events like Sustainable Development Transition Forum. Also, we are providing advisory service to the member states, particularly developing countries. So I hope we can have the chance to meet all of you in Incheon someday. Well, as you know well, the draft of SDGs is waiting to be approved at the UN General Assembly in coming September. Once it is adopted, it will shape the post-2015 planetary effort towards sustainable development. International community will endeavor to achieve the new global goal, SDGs, from next year in order to achieve by 2030. All countries will mainstream the sustainable development goals into their national strategies for the implementation. Water and sanitation is one of the 17 goals, goal 6, as discussed. Water and sanitation is the basic need for humankind. Therefore, international community should provide the solution for securing the clean drinking water and safe sanitation infrastructure as soon as possible for the sustainable development of the globe. The Asia-Pacific region, in which around 40% of the world population live, is experiencing the fastest economic growth as well as water challenge accordingly. In this respect, I would say this region is economically fast but environmentally vulnerable. Therefore, Asia and Pacific region, politically and economically, has very significant meaning and influence to the world. Against this backdrop, our session will discuss how to achieve water security, how to address those challenges, such as water management problems, water distribution and water quality control, response to the climate change through case studies. We will focus on means of implementation for this, finance, governance, technology transfer, and the capacity development will be our main key issues. However, as you know, as far as means of implementation is concerned, it shows that significant gaps remain. So we will identify the gaps and solutions. Let me tell you the modality of our session briefly. There will be an overview presentation, and after that, we will have a panel discussion. Panelists will make general comments to the overall overview presentation or short presentations to case study of their own individual countries. After that, we will have Q&A session. We invited 5 distinguished experts. We have 1 overview presenter and 4 panelists with a lot to say on challenges and responses on water issues. Okay, let's get started without further delay. First is the overview presentation by Mr. Hongpeng Liu of UN ESCAP. Let me introduce him briefly. Hongpeng is the chief of Energy Security and Water Resources Section, UN ESCAP in Bangkok. Hong Peng he has more than 25 years experience in the area of energy and water at national government and international organization. His current work includes the formulation and management of plans and programs for regional cooperation on energy security and water resources management for member countries in Asia and the Pacific. Mr. Liu, you will have the 25 minutes for your presentation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Yong. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to share about the Asia-Pacific overview for water security and sustainable development. So since Dr. Yong said I have about 25 minutes, I will just use this mainly go through what are the major challenges in Asia-Pacific for water, and also some of the tools we are using to address these water security issues in Asia-Pacific. Dr. Yong just remind me if I go beyond the 25 minutes. I don't want to use the others' time. So I think I will just mainly use this time to go through the few issues in Asia-Pacific. The first is about the climate change impacts and also disaster risks, and also the water and the sanitation issues. And secondly, some of the emerging focus like water security, the water, food, and energy access, and also some tools to address the integrated water resources management in Asia and Pacific. So most of you probably already aware in Asia Pacific where this is like the region with the largest population and also the faster economic growth. Actually, Asia is the driest continent compared to the other continent in the world. So the water availability of the fresh water is less than half of the global annual average of 6,000 cubic meters per capita. So Asia's rivers, lakes, and aquifers give it per capita less than 1/10 of the water of South America, or Australia and New Zealand, less than 1/4 of North America, almost 1/3 of Europe, and moderately less than even Africa. So today, the most dynamic Asian economies, including like the emerging economies, China, India, and the Southeast Asian countries, are all close to being in the conditions of water stress. So that means this the coincide of the stresses of the economic growth and also the water supply. So the exceptions are only a few countries like Bhutan, Brunei, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, and Papua New Guinea. So these are the only few countries with the exception only for this. So if you look at this address, if I take just two sectors to give you some kind of impression, like the idea how these kind of challenges, like the water stress challenges, first of all, like the irrigated agriculture. You see this is really a kind of baseline for the water stress. And if you look at these kind of scenarios for the 2025, based on the IPCC, you will see most of the countries with actually increased the stress for the irrigated agriculture. And the overland of the irrigation crops on changes in water stress, especially in Southeast Asia, 75% of the irrigated crops will see water stress. And another sector is about the power generation. If you look at this baseline, you will see most of the power plant is located in the coast areas and also in the large cities and the industrialized areas. So 90% of Southeast Asia power plant design capacity is located in the areas of water stress concerns. And 70% compared to the globally, it's only 70%. So that means in most of the Asian countries, it's much higher stress compared to the global situation. If you look at the development scenarios in 2025, there's much more stress will come to this region. And also, if you look at the global kind of average, and also the Southeast Asian countries, 55% of the Southeast Asian countries' current power plant actually designed. We see the water stress now, 2 to 8 times compared to the average of the global level. So the significance of the climate change, if you look at this kind of the reasons, especially for the changes in quantity of flow, will affect this kind of design sizing of the infrastructure, especially for agriculture sector. You have to think about the irrigation, different kind of the designs and the infrastructures of the irrigation systems, and also the existing operations and the maintenance for the water-related systems. Like a flood control and also the irrigation, to provide more water for agriculture, and also the impacts for shifting raining patterns. This is really affected the planting season, and also the drought needs to be avoided. And also the extreme and the recurring flood and the droughts. If you look at these years, in many of the Asian countries, we have severe kind of floods and droughts. It's really unprecedented in many of the countries. And also it brings the health implications and also some of the socio-economic kind of impacts. This is really the disaster. If you look at the typhoon, which is actually the frequency of the typhoon, it's much more compared to the past. Almost most of the annual average exposure to tropical cyclones is concentrated in North and Southeast Asia. Exposure is growing most rapidly in all other regions, with an increase of almost 2.5 times since 1970s. So except in Pacific. So I think most of the Asian continent is in the severe kind of increase of the frequency of typhoon and cyclones. And also more and more people in the region are getting exposed to hazards. Many urban locations in the high-risk area. If you look at this map, you will see of the 300 and more than 300 and urban agglomerations, 119 are located along the coastlines, which is really close to this kind of area, which is flood-prone and also lots of thunderstorms. Most of the large losses is in the middle income and the developed area, because most of these coastlines, the urban and city areas and the industrial areas, so the losses is much higher than other parts of the region. If you see these economic losses in 2011, 80% of total losses, compare losses from the 2000 to 2009. So losses have grown more than 16 times. And also compared to the 1970s, GDP increased only the 13 times. So that means the losses is much higher than the GDP growth. So water and sanitation, I think for this area, water and sanitation is really challenging for Asian Pacific. If you see the water supply in Asian Pacific, it's meet like achieved the MDGs for the water supply, and the proportion of the region's population with access to improved drinking water increased from 73% to 88% by 2015. And also the access rate increased in all Asia-Pacific sub-regions, except the Central Asia and Pacific region, where it stays the same. I think the Central Asia and Pacific, since they have already better access compared to South and Southeast Asia. So I think that's where they stay the same, but most of the increases come from other sub-regions. But for sanitation, compared with the water supply, sanitation coverage is still in the dire state. And also only around 53% of the region's population have access to improve the sanitation. So the most rapid progress has been in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia. The progress in South and Southwest Asia was even weaker. So if you look at this number, you will find in like Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia, which increased quite significantly for the access to sanitation services. But in South and Southwest Asia, still the people still have a lot of difficulties. And we recently had some kind of activities, especially the capacity building project in Southeast Asia, in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. We will see currently, like in Cambodia, only 33% of population have access to basic sanitation services. And 63% of population still practice open defecation in the South region in Laos, and also more than 20,000 people die each year in Vietnam because lack of clean water for sanitation and hygiene. So this is really the challenge in many of the developing countries in Asia Pacific. And talking about the emerging kind of issues for water sector, we really more and more emphasize in this region talk about the water security. Especially if you look at the recent studies from the joint studies with the ADB and the ESCAP and other development partners in 2013. It's mainly the Asian Water Development Outlook, which provided a kind of tools to measure how the water security in Asia Pacific. So I will talk a little bit more later on when we talk about the tools, how we use the tools to measure the water security in different countries. And also for water security, when we talk about this, there are a lot of different views. Even the definition of water security is not very clear, and different organizations or different countries have different perceptions for water security. And under the UN Water Framework, ESCAP is working with the United Nations University to lead this task force about the working definition of water security. Actually, I use this the working definition here just to see how at the UN Water Framework how we define this water security, and which means mainly to provide the same kind of definition when we talk about water security. It's the capacity of a population to safeguard sustainable access to adequate quantities of acceptable quality water for sustaining livelihood, human well-being, and socio-economic development, for ensuring protection against waterborne pollution and water-related disasters, and for preserving ecosystems in a climate of peace and political stability. So this is where we just use this definition under the UN Water Framework. But this is still a kind of a continued discussion. And I think if any of the other development partners has different views and comments, it's really welcome to improve this definition. I think that is really along this process how people think about the water security in the different contexts. So for the vision of the water security, we for this Asia Pacific report in 2013 is really to have some kind of vision on the societies can enjoy water security when they successfully managing their water resources and services to satisfy the household water and the sanitation needs in all countries and the communities, and support the productive economies in agriculture, in agriculture, industry, and energy. To also develop vibrant, livable cities and the towns, and restore healthy rivers and ecosystems, and also build a resilient community that can adapt to change. And talk about the nexus approach. That's also another quite popular kind of areas many agencies and countries are addressing now. I think from the previous session, we also learned in the Europe, the ECE region, and especially in Central Asia, how they address this kind of challenges through nexus approach. So I think the key driver for this is about impacting the condition use of management of water resources, all external to the water box. The same is true in agriculture and energy to a lesser extent. The Ministry of Water acting alone cannot prevent a water crisis. I come from China. Actually, in my country, we always have a saying, there are 9 dragons control the water. So 9 dragons means, at least 9 ministries in many of the countries deal with the water issues. This is really, we need a kind of integrated approach. I think this water, food, and energy nexus approach is really integrate from the different institutional, the ministries and the institutional kind of mechanism. At the same time, to address these kind of challenges, especially for waters from different sectors. I think that's really, you can see the result. And in many of these countries, this kind of approach, which already reflect the changes, how the government can work together. I will just skip this view, why we address this, because the water is, because the food, the demand for food and demand for energy, I think are growing quickly. And then all the government realized it cannot doing just address the one sector. And also the situating the nexus approach means recognize the interconnections and also of water and food and energy sectors across space and time. So I think the main objectives is to improve energy, water, and the food security, to address the externalities across the sectors, and the decision-making at the nexus approach. It's also support the transitional kind of approach to address the sustainable development issues. So for the last session, I just want to mention a few kind of tools we are using. Like I mentioned earlier, one of this is about how to measure energy, water security. And I'll start with this Asia-Pacific water hotspots. Actually, this is a kind of tools we use to assess different kind of country about the stress of the water supply. And the Southeast Asia countries are at a crossroads. Actually, we start from Southeast Asia country. We're also doing this for the other Asian countries. And the hotspots is mainly the country or the areas or the ecosystems with overlapping challenges of poor access to water and sanitation, deteriorating water quality, limited water availability, and increased exposure to climate change and water-related disasters. This is really use these kind of indicators to do this assessment. So this is a hotspot. Probably it's too small, sorry, but I think you will find the PPT later. But this is really based on the indicators we developed. We just do this assessment for the Asian Pacific. So for the Southeast Asian countries are at crossroad of development. This high growth rates provide financing for better water resources management. But developer priorities ignore the risks from disaster, climate change, and the poor household water and sanitation access. But in Central Asia, and also in South Asia, like Uzbekistan and India, are also facing exceptional circumstances because of the little preparedness for natural disaster and climate change. In the case of India, if you look at these indicators, actually this unsustainable pattern of water use and also in the Uzbekistan, which is a similar kind of situation. So basic access to sanitation remains determining the concern for like some of the countries in South Asia, like Bangladesh. So this will show, I will not go into the detail, but the different colors will show how this kind of overlap different kind of indicators to provide the information, what is addressed for those countries in terms of the water security. So this is a water security framework based on the 5 independent key dimensions. This is in the Water Development Outlook 2017, which is led by the ADB to develop how to use this kind of framework to do the measuring of the water security in different countries, with the integration of these 5 dimensions from the first dimension is household water security, and second dimension is economic water security, and the third dimension is about urban water security, environmental security, and the last one is resilience to water-related disasters. So this is the level or the grade. How can you measure this kind of different dimensions? From 1 to 5, actually 5 is the most secure kind of stage, and 1 is really the worst stage, from hazard to engaged to capable, effective, and model. So based on this kind of indicators we did for Asia and the Pacific, and the national water security in Asia Pacific, you will see most of the countries at level 2 and 3. So more than 75% of the countries in Asia and Pacific are experiencing a serious lack of water security. And 37 countries are either suffering from low levels of water security, or have barely begun to engage in the essential task of improving water security. And also 12 countries have established the infrastructure and the management systems for water security. So this is really a kind of a quantitative analysis for the water security in different countries in Asia and the Pacific. And also under this, we from ESCAP, we worked together with the ADB to develop this household water security index. This is really the household water security as one of the 5 dimensions within the water security framework. And the security of household water is necessary to assist in achieving global goals of eradicating poverty and encouraging further economic and social development. I think this is really how the household level water security is very important for the whole society. And this household water security index actually allows for an assessment of the extent to which countries are meeting household water and sanitation needs and improving hygiene for public health, and also which include what are the benefits to use this household water security index and how you use it. And this is actually the results. The index allow you can categorize different scales and use this method. The countries actually have been accordingly ranked equally in the 3 following categories. One is about water access, second one is about sanitation access, and third one is daily diarrhea. It's mainly to do this kind of assessment for water supply and sanitation and hygiene. When added up, the 3 scores for each country created the overall kind of household water security index. And the smaller, the better. So you will see these different countries with a different level with this household water security index. And this is a map to show how the whole region in Asia Pacific to address this kind of through this methodology. This is in 2002. and this is in 2010. So you can see the changes. Actually, many countries improved their household water security along this process. So how we just address this water security, I think come back to the topic to address the water security towards the sustainable water management. I think really it's about the political consensus through this regional cooperation. I think for the last session, there are a lot of discussions about regional cooperation for water security and also to address water resources management. So in Asia Pacific, actually, there are many different kind of platforms we discuss about regional cooperation. In the year 2013, there's a second Asia Pacific Water Summit hosted by Thai government. The outcome is the Chiang Mai Declaration, which mainly emphasized how regional cooperation can address the water security, and also at the same time how this kind of regional and international cooperation will support the sustainable development through integrated water resources management. And also at the ESCAP level, we have 62 members and associate members. And at our regional commission in 2012, actually the resolution was adopted by the member countries. One is to enhance regional cooperation, and especially through capacity building for integrated water resources management. And secondly, to stress, another resolution is to strengthen the resilience of the member countries to address the water-related disasters. So this gave the mandates for the Secretariat to support the member countries to address these issues, especially at the regional level, how the water security can be addressed through regional cooperation. And also depend on the context from different sub-regions, different approach will be taken. So this is exactly what we are doing now for the integrated water resources management at the national level and the local government level, and also municipal government level, municipality level, as well as different stakeholders to be involved to develop this kind of strategy for integrated water resources management based on the water systems to support like water security, water reuse, stormwater management, ecosystem kind of maintenance, and also cross-sector, like I mentioned earlier, this nexus approach to address energy, water, and food sectors, and also the health and sanitation areas. So I think for this session, as Dr. Yung mentioned earlier, we will have this kind of just start from this overview, and then we will have our panel list will give a very brief kind of information based on their own country's experience, like from Thailand, how the strategic plan for water management will support the, based on the different areas, support economic growth and sustainable development. And from Philippines, water for city. So I think this is really important areas. And also we have panelists from Korea, which will mainly talk about how the transformation process in Republic of Korea for water and sanitation. So, and then I think we will have a really good discussion to cover all the areas for water security. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peng, for your very informative presentation. Okay, we are a little behind schedule, but I'd like to open the floor. Is there any question or comments on his presentation? A short comment or question, please. Yes, please. Gentleman over there.
Microphone? Or do you want me just to shout?
We have here one.
Thank you very much for that really very interesting presentation, Mr. Liu. I very much like your emphasis on water security, but I have a little bit of a worry in what you presented. A very wise man some years ago told me that my security is the security of others. And you listed 5 securities which are inward-looking. They're all looking into the nation or into the place we're talking about, which puts the whole debate of water security at a national level and it raises the issues of sovereignty from one country to another. And we know very well, and Asia is one of those places where the security of water in one nation depends on other nations. Would you like to comment a bit more on that reflection, please?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. Because we have these dimensions of 5.1, it's mainly just based on the current context, which is there are more or less there's a consensus. But for this kind of transboundary water and also the security based on the others, I think this is really the next step we have to think about. Compared to what the last session introduced about transboundary water issues in Europe. Probably in Asia Pacific, we still lag a little bit behind because there's no any regional protocol or treaty at the moment. I understand that there are a few member countries already expressed their interest in joining the convention. But still, many member countries probably are not very clear about what this kind of convention will be. That's also, for the last session, I didn't have a chance to ask the question, how this kind of treaty and convention could bring the different kind of countries, especially with dispute kind of areas on water. And probably you have some good experience from Europe, which can be replicated in Asian Pacific. That's really the area we should address. I think this is really the good question we think about for the future. We should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to take one more question because of time constraint.
Thank you. It will be very quick. I come from Myanmar, and I'm the secretary of the expert group, which supports the National Water Resources Committee. That is an apex body. My question is, when you rank all these household water security ranking, which data are you using? And of course, for the time constraint, I would also give some input that I would very much like the UN to use the credential organization's data, which is something like NWRC certified data. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think this is the challenge always we are facing for the water sector. There's no really, like what you said, the credential kind of sources to use the data from either the national level or the regional level. That's also we want probably with the member countries support how to improve this kind of statistics at the regional level. So for, if I can give you an example for the water side, now we already have different MOUs with like IEA and also with the sub-regional organizations like ASEAN Center for Energy and the SARC Energy Center. And we think probably based on the different kind of channel, we can come across even more kind of reliable data for energy sector. But for water sector, currently we still didn't figure out what will be the best way. But currently we use the data which is mostly available from either UN statistics or from our own statistics in ESCAP. We have a statistics division, so we use mostly this data. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the other panelists. Because of time constraint, we will hear only 5 minutes each, taking turn. After that, we will have Q&A session altogether. First speaker is Mrs. Jangya Triroit, Director of Technology and Standard Division, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, Thailand. Please. And then Mrs. Triroit has more than 30 years of experience in water engineering and water management, including water supply as well as wastewater treatment system. She has been working as a government official since 1983. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks for the organizer for inviting me to this special session, UN conference. So my presentation will be about the case of Thailand, where we are now doing the strategy plan. And then this is a national level, and then I will go to one local case study. And then later on, my colleague will present her another case study. So in this is the relevant issue area is IWRM integrated water resource management from water security framework 5 key dimensions. Yes, so we have identified, first one is water for domestic use, including drinking water. In rural area of Thailand, well, it's not covered with quantity is not enough, and then also the many area the quality is still under standard. Second is water for irrigation. It's only cover 20% of total irrigated area. And the third is water for urban and water for urban city. More water to be supplied for urbanization, expansion, demand for business and industry use. And the fourth is water for economic development. Well, higher demand is needed in the future. And lastly, water for ecosystem and pollution control. It's only few river basins are able to allocate water for ecosystem. For example, the Chao Phraya River and Mekong River, which is in the central part of Thailand. The reason is that because there are dams, multi-purpose dams to regulate the flow in the river. What we are doing now with the government, yes. I'm sorry, this is I missed one slide, but anyway, this is the latest. Sorry, I missed one slide. It's okay. Anyway, yes. We have still in Thailand, as many countries, fragmented sectorial authority and agency. So to doing the integrated for strategy plan, we have to involve all the agency. And then with the concept of IWRM, we consider related water resource and forest and land. And in the context of the river basins. And with the problem of traditional supply management, we focus on technical solution, consider isolate project. Now we are moving to integrated project budgetary. And we also include the participation of stakeholders in all levels, the River Basin Committee and network. So basically the conceptual framework, water management plan, preparation process, we have identified problems, clearly where and when and magnitude and frequency and impact. And then the cause of the problems and identify strategic measure, both structural and non-structural, and grouping the tactic, and then come for short-term and long-term solution. So I think within this month, the government will announce the water management strategic plan. It's on the way for final draft of the report, and that the water management strategic plan come into 5 sections. First is the rehabilitate upstream area and landslide protection. For example, forestation and early warning system for people who live in a mountain area where it's often of flood and landslide, which cause life and loss of property of the people. And second is the shortage of water supply system. Within 2 years, this is a new policy that within not more than 4 years, we want to have, the government want to install all the water supply project in every village, hopefully. The third is protection and evaluate flood disaster. This one is driven from 2011 massive flood in Thailand, which World Bank estimate 1.5 billion baht loss and damage. 34 baht is equal to 1 euro. And the fourth is the protection and solving water quality problems. Install a wastewater treatment plant involving the local government project. And lastly is the fifth is the increasing efficiency of water management. This is to institutional and legal framework, i.e. water law. We don't have water law yet in Thailand. Probably Myanmar go forward our law. We have proposed the first draft water law 15 years ago, and then it gets stuck with the political change and something. And then now it's time to we propose it, but I think this is under consideration of the involved parliament. And I think that is for national level. Now I move to the a case study. This is a local case study. It's the area called Bung Khong Long. It's a wetland, and it's the Lamsa site 1098. This project, probably some of you may heard about it, but for me, I just know this project last year. And this project is near Mekong River. So MRC, Mekong River Commission, support the climate change vulnerable assessment, and that I think that the beginning of the awareness of the people. Yes, and the mechanism is really the networking, regulation from the stakeholder and the villagers, and participation. And it's interesting thing is that they have social sanction rather than the fee for people who violate the regulation. And this is some picture of the focus group and meeting in the area. And this is for when people in many very local area want to protect forest and tree, they involve the monk. This is about religious and wisdom of the local. Last slide, I want to mention one person. She is a woman who are very active. She is the former mayor of one small municipality in the province, and she's now the head of the working group Bung Khong Long project. And I met her very one time I met her, but I really want to, if I have later somebody want me to present this project. She's an amazing person because she fight a lot for saving the wetland, the lake. Previously, the lake was deteriorate, and she bring people around the lake. The lake is about 18 village into sub-district, and she have to go by village, ask for cooperation, and then it's successfully. I mean, in the meantime, but she need more of the support. Yes, and this is one of the case study that I want to share the lesson learned. About the leadership of this woman and the capacity building to the community level, that they must know that they must know how and why and how to protect their water resources, and they will have the benefit sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jang. Yeah, you can have a seat. Yeah. Okay, thank you for introducing very interesting case study of Thailand. Yeah, even one voice can change the world. It is the important for one leader in the village. Okay, I'd like to invite next speaker, Napawan, and then she will share the PowerPoint material with the previous speaker because they are from same country. Okay, she is a lecturer of School of Administrative Studies, Metro University, Thailand. She has a profound experience in case research for food safety, water supply for agriculture and smart village, etc. You have the floor. 5 minutes, please.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. My slide, my presentation will continue from Director Chanya, but this is the small case study that I can apply from global vision to local action. We will talk about the the electric generating Authority of Thailand. We call in the short name as ESCAP. It's located in Mamot district, Lampang province, in the northern part of Thailand. My workplace is in the northern, not in the center of Thailand. So we have many cases of the upstream water leakage, and maybe in the water resource problem of lacking water and the contaminant of waters. This is the picture of the power plant that is established in Lampang for 30 years ago, and they always have the. Okay, can be the first one first. Yeah, they have a lot of environment issue in Mamot for a long time. They have a lot of conflict, and people don't believe that the water is clean enough for drinking, for consumption, and they lack of water in agriculture also. So we do one research project. The title name is System and Mechanism Development by Participation of Community Nearby Mamot Power Plant in Water Supply for Agriculture and Consumption. This is the location of the case study that we have our research with community and villager there. We call sub-district Bandong, 2 villages that we work with people. There are about 8 villages, and people is about 4,500. About 55% they are farmers, and they're growing rice, which they need water. But because of they locate nearby the power plant, they don't believe that the water clean enough for drinking and use in their house. So they always buy and they use the rainwater and saving by this. You see the, sorry, I cannot. Okay. No, I just want. Use the poison here. Okay. So they use the big jar to save their water like this, like the local wisdom. And this, the picture below is the tank for water for drinking, but they don't drink right now. They buy the water from outside. So we do 2 pilot projects. The first one is water supply for agriculture in one village. And the second pilot project is water supply for drinking water. This is the picture that they do together with us. We, as a university, we always integrate of our mission like teaching, research, and academic service with people, with the community nearby. So this is only the example they do with us, and they save the water for their agriculture and for drinking water. This is the last one that we do for them. And not only our work, they work with us also. What we do, we survey. We try to have our students go to the village and learn with the community and the leader. We invite in 8 villages. All the leaders work with us. We bring them to another province to study, to learn with other villages who can work and share the case study that they success, like this one. Sorry. The first one, you can see this. Oh, sorry, I have to show that. So this one, the leader go together to Chiang Rai province. We see the other university from Engineer Without Border who work in the community, in rural community for drinking water. And also the leader and some volunteer work with our students in their area, in their sub-district, to know how many water source in their community. Finally, we found that about 45 water resource that they have in each village. And this is like the GIS, GPS, that we work with them and put the information for their community to use in the future. Not only that, we work with the youth. The youth in the village, they learn with us about how we examine the water quality, and they learn with the, like Director Chanya work with monk, but this one work with the Christian church. So we use the people, every part of village, include the government and in national level and local level. The committee working together every month to develop and try to use the technical. We found that water, drinking water is always relate to technical and social support and network management. So we work together until now. So let me make a conclusion like this. The pilot project working, we led by the leaders and the working group. We focus on 4P. I always use 4P in my project. The first one is promoting education. We work, we teach, and we do research and academic service with all levels, like adult and youth. For public policy, the second P is public policy cycle. We think that the important thing is monitoring and evaluation, and people must be participate in every process, in every step of public policy. The third one is public hearing. From the picture, you can see that every month, people and leader and working committee work together and invite everyone who are interested to know what happened in their village, what they have, and what is the new knowledge that they could know, to make more understanding between them. The last one is people participation. Sometimes people understand that the most important thing is participation, but we try to let them know more about the environment governance, that more than participation, such as the local regulation. Some villages have their own law, village law, we call village law, the rule of use the water and use the food. They have the forest, but they don't have the right in their land, but they can find out the food for eat and to save, use the water for their what we call farmers, for their farms. So my conclusion for the village, for my case, just sorry, I forget to let you know that the technique is we use the slow sand filter. We call the short one is SSF. Put to let them make the filter for water supply for their drinking. But we advise them that the water may be not, to make sure that it's clean enough, they could boil it before drinking. But the villager right now, they always drink from the tank when after filtering. They use the SFS for drinking water, and they learn how to maintain the operations. Anyway, we think that it can be developed more by themselves, and they learn that this way they can save the cost of living. They don't need to buy the water from outside anymore. Yeah, I think for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Napawan. Okay, I would like to invite next speaker, Tora. Please, to the point, 5 minutes, please. She is the chair of Philippine Water Partnership.
This is for Baptist. And this is, and you can point to this one and this one. Okay.
Thank you very much. Buenos dias. Gracias, Mr. Chair. Before I go to my presentation, I'd like to comment on the presentation of Hong Peng on water security and the water, food, and energy nexus. In the Philippines, I'm glad to know that you are also debating on water, the definition of water security. Because when we started coming up with a water security plan, we started with defining what is water security. And we had a long debate of what the definition. And we're happy to know that, well, it's not final on your end, it's not final on our end, but we're already doing, our plan based on the framework of UN. On the water energy nexus, food nexus, we also want everybody to know that with the PWP, we organized a forum on water and energy departments, national departments involved in water and energy, and also the operators and all the stakeholders in March last year during the World Water Week. And we came to know that it was the first time that this group, grouped together, talked together about the issues on water and energy, and we have the same issues and concerns, and we need to be connected. But after that, no more. So I think with this regional cooperation, with this work being done by the UN and the global organizations, we can also be guided on how we go about coming up with these programs. So now my topic is about capacity development for sustainable development in the Philippines. This is one area I'm tasked to present, which is more on water for all. To give you a big background of the Philippines, we are actually divided into 3 island groups. And we have I want to focus more on the number of municipalities that we have. We have 1,491 municipalities. And the program that I am about to share is about giving water to these municipalities. The framework, the basis of coming up with this program was still the MDG, number 7, and with that MDG, we came up with the Philippine Development Plan incorporating one of the area which is on water, which is we wanted to provide water by 2016 to half of the total population, and we came up with a roadmap which is universal access to water by 2025. So that is actually almost aligned to the SDG. What is this project that the government is implementing? This is the Salin Tubig. It is in Tagalog, Sagana at Ligtas na Tubig sa Lahat na program, which is Salin Tubig or abundant and safe water for all. This is provision of water to 435 municipalities and 226 who are non-waterless municipalities. We have the criteria: low water access, high waterborne diseases, and high poverty incidence. So the components are divided into 2: capacity development and infrastructure investment. The first phase, which is the capacity development, that is one that is already being done. Some are completed, and now we are already going to the investment portion. To sustain the project, the strategy is to ring-fence LGU, local government water utility accounts, meaning in the water provision for local government is included in the budget of the local government, but it is not separated to be just for water. It is for the general use. So the ring fencing was done already, and then there's been an LGU economic enterprise that was formed. Local ordinances sometimes is necessary for it to be implemented. The tariff also is included for it to be sustainable. It has to be following a cost recovery method. Attendance O&M training, preparing of O&M plan, and preparing of water safety plan. The reason why this water safety plan was included is because in the Philippine National Standards for Drinking Water, the water safety plan is mandatory. And there is already an order from the Department of Health that all water utilities should have a water safety plan. That is for the water sustainability. What are the challenges? The challenges is that one of the challenges is the absorptive capacity of the LGUs to prepare the feasibility study. So there are capacity development trainings that were conducted. However, the local government units are not able to absorb all the trainings that are being given to them. And I think that is one area where they are looking at improving the capacity building tools in implementing in the LGUs. Second one is the quality of work. They wanted to have this infrastructure. They started it, but then the quality of work is a little bit, substandard. The monitoring is not very good. Well, that's second. And then the third one is the availability of water sources with respect to quality and quantity of water. I think that is one of the very pressing issues as far as those in the remote areas are concerned. The next is the capability of the contractor. Because in the remote areas, there are no big-time contractors. Nobody would like to go there and develop a water system which is very, 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 very far, and it would cost them more. The next issue is challenge is availability of drilling contractor in the region. In the region, nobody would like to go to the remote areas again to drill water. Those are really challenges which are infrastructure based. The next one is georesistivity survey. In the areas where they're very remote, good if there's a surface water which is very abundant. But if there's no surface water, we have to drill underground. There's no study on where we can drill underground. So it needs a lot of data for it to be given water. The next one is availability of materials in the area. Again, this is still based on construction. The fourth one, which is a bit difficult, but it is a reality, is the internal relationship among the LGUs, the officials, and also the politics in the local level. And the last one is, which is also very important. I didn't know why this really came out as an issue, but this is really an issue, water sampling. It's very difficult to know to monitor the quality of water in the area where it is very remote. So those are for the local government units. We have the Salin Tubig program wherein they are giving capacities to the local government. Now, aside from the local government who are implementing water projects, there are also local water districts who are implementing water projects. In statistics-wise, 20% of the population of the Philippines do not have access to water, and 20% are being provided by local water districts, 25% by private operators, and the rest, 35%, are by the local government units. So the 20% being provided by the local water districts are being provided by these agencies. We have the local water utilities, the regulator. We have the regional training centers of the water districts. We have the universities and colleges, private organizations, NGOs, and other training providers. Meaning they have the people who can train the local water districts. The challenge is, how about the others? How about the small water service providers? They do not have this capacity building providers. That is why the way forward is that we need to come up with a national capacity development program wherein it should have to cater to all providers, to all those in the water sector. And it should be capacity development, that's just providing training and that's it. And then no more monitoring and no more ensuring that it will be implemented and it will improve the situation in the field. Encourage partnership. Partnership meaning government to government, government and private, government and NGO, and all the other stakeholders. I can share like the ADB funded us with a water operators partnership with Nepal, Bangladesh, and Cagayan de Oro in Davao. It was a very, very successful partnership because like in Nepal, we trained not only the water utility, but we trained the training center of the Department of Water and Sewerage for them to train the water utilities in Nepal. So it is like train the trainers kind of thing. And we in the Maynilad Academy did that, not the PWP, but it's my other hat of the Maynilad Water Academy. Next is we need to benchmark with other agencies and other countries as well. Way Forward also is coming up with innovative learning models. We next month we are going to have an innovation workshop in Cebu. This is looking at how we are going to do things innovatively. Lastly is increased capacity development budget and financing and access to funds, because I think in the Philippines not much budget is given to capacity development. It is more of the donor-driven, and sometimes it is the NGOs running it. But the local government and really the government do not have much budget in terms of capacity development, but still it is very, very important. So I think my 5 minutes is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dora. Okay, I have a small announcement. I was informed that our UN Water Office will kindly providing our today's lunch, but our lunch time will start after this session. So, but we will speed up. So let's go to the Dr. An. He is a senior research fellow and director of Division of Water Environment of Korea Environment Institute.
Good morning. My name is Jong An from Korea. I'd like to introduce briefly the transformation of water supply in Korea. Since 1960, Korea has made great strides in improving and constructing the infrastructure and servicing enhancement of water supply and sanitation. Korea's successful water sector development is kind of mirrors of country's remarkable economic progress. Over the last 50 years, the increase of water demand from agricultural, industrial, domestic sector has been met safely. Also, the vein of interchanging drought and flooding have been mitigated properly. While the population is doubled from 55 million in 1961 to 50 million in 2012, the water supply connection rate rose from 70% to 98%, and the sewer connection rate also increasing from the just 2% to 90%. And more than 90% of collected wastewater is now highly treated to permit the selective water reuse. Along with this remarkable progress, government has very important role in initiating financing investment and prepare of water management system. This successful transformation of water sector rests on three major seminal decisions. The first one is the country made water sector development as an integral part of the transformation of our economy, which moved Korea from being the 17th poorest nation in the world in the 1961 to 17th wealthiest nation in 2013. Also, government adopted not only ambitious water development goal, but also applied the law and regulation institution and a financing resource in order to transport the development goal into result on the ground. Also, the government instituted the rigorous monitoring and reporting to hold institutions accountable for promised progress in the line with the country's social, cultural ethos and political economy, which did not easily allow the failure. One of the good examples is the New Village movement. It's called 새마을 운동 in Korean. It's initiated in 1971 by former President Park Chung-hee. This movement is kind of a rural movement for better living, but it also kind of the promise of the sanitation initiative. As you can see in the picture, the infection rate is highly associated with installation of the sanitation facilities such as the public latrine. As you can see here, the infection rate in 1971 is just 71%. And then within the 20 years, this infection rate is dramatically dropped into 0.6%. So the message is clear. The government is a very important role in developing the water sector. Also, the water sector development can be regarded as an important integral part of the economic transformation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we finished our presentation from the panelists. Now it's time to have the Q&A session, but we will have just one round of questions, and then after that we will have a couple of questions from the floor. First, I would like to ask Mrs. Jangnya, actually to get access to clean water, safe water, is the basic need for humankind. We all know that. But in spite of that, why can't we secure the right to water and sanitation? There might be many challenges and constraints, financial issues and governance issues, capacity development issues, inequality between geographical location, or inequality between the poor and rich. So what are the main challenges for the region, particularly Asia-Pacific region? And then how can these challenges be addressed? Jangnya, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will talk about not just the safe drinking water, but I want to talk about the access to water in general. For example, about Thailand, we don't have water law yet, so water allocation is still not practiced. Upstream, downstream conflict in the region, and I think that's the first one. The second one I want to talk about is the availability. I mean, insufficient quantity because of the threat to fresh water due to rapid urbanization and increasing of agricultural area. And last one, I think, is the climate change, which is led to drought and water scarcity, and therefore not enough water to share. And the tools come to the tools that have been implemented in our country and in our region. I think that first is related to the governance and institutional framework. Thailand has adopted IWIM, Integrated Water Resource Management, which in national level we have the National Water Resource Committee and the BORC established since 1988, and we have now the River Basin Committee complete 25 major river, but still with the mandate of the committee is not allowed to allocate water is still the problems. And the second I want to talk about is the capacity development, involve stakeholder participation. I think now the project from the grassroots, from the bottom up, is more encouraged. So we will find more of the integrated project from the bottom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dora, let's touch upon the urbanization and water issues. Actually, as you know well, urbanization is moving at full speed. We cannot avoid the urbanization. However, in case of rural areas, for example, long water pipes are needed because all the houses and buildings are dispersed. So this demands more energy because we need more pressure for delivering water. And then sometimes most of the water leaks under the ground. So how can the current institutional framework overcome the gaps in the provision of services in rural areas and smaller municipalities? How to draw the focus away from the big urban settlements to smaller communities? Would you shed your light?
I think, well, in the Philippines, we have to define first what is considered as rural and small communities. Because when they came up with this program, access to the poor, they consider those with water districts are not already considered in the project. But if you look at the coverage of the water districts, some covered only 50%. And what happens to the other 50% of the area, which is considered also rural? So one model is that for those who are already in the water district, which is government, to also help those who are in the rural areas in terms of provision of water. Then secondly is that looking at coming up with an inventory of what are really the areas that do not have access to water. It is not only just giving the pipelines to them, but really, if you're going to have a national plan for water for all, come up with an inventory of where the communities who do not have access to water are, what are the situation, and do they have source of water, and if it is contiguous, they can lump it into one project wherein the government can come up with one project for them, and even the private sector can come in also to help in terms of providing water. I think for me, sitting as a private sector representative in the SDG framework for the government now, I see the role also of the private sector in that area. And then lastly, capacitate, again, the LGUs, that's what I'm sharing. Capacitate, and the capacity building tools should be localized so that they can really understand and they can implement, and it should be monitored for it to be sustainable.
Thank you, Dora. Okay, let's move on to financing issue. Among other major issues of means of implementation, how to mobilize the fund, how to finance the required amount of budget is very critical. Since the last September climate change summit in New York, member states pledged more than $10 billion for the GCF. Is quite positive since it starts now, it starts move. The developing countries have high expectations on GCF's role or the ODA. I think the contribution and the role of GCF and ODA is important to achieve in order to achieve the water goal. Also at the national level, individual countries need to come up with a creative, innovative method to mobilize the fund, considering their circumstances. So in this context, what opportunities can be identified to advance the post-2015 development agenda, particularly in the context of financing for water? Dr. An, could you give us some idea?
I think the first understanding the deep connection between the water infrastructure and economic development is very important in part. Water infrastructure in Korea case has been developed with accordance with the plan of the economic development. The construction of the metropolitan water work system in 1917 it was the very huge project that was designed to supply water for the residential area and even the industrial area too, in the Seoul and metropolitan area. The investment of these water sectors at the initial stages of the economic development is very possible thanks to the foreign aid. Like the other industry area, the investment in the water work require activity and economic investment. So this effort have been contribute to the technology development and job creation, either or in direct or indirectly. Also, I'd like to comment one more thing is that we need to know the careful investment and the efficient operation management system. It's very important because the scale of business should be considered in the water infrastructure in order to be the sustainable financing system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Han. And then lastly, Napawan, could you give me some comment on the constraints and responses that we shared? The first question, would you add some comment on that questions?
Thank you. Just shortly, as I told you before, that the important things is education. So learning by doing together will create more understanding, especially for the young generation, to know more about their own village and the real problems, the cause and effect, and related factors. So I think we believe that the community learning and capacity development, they can solve their own problems and make the water cleaning and more security.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for being delayed, but I would like to open the floor, just one or two questions from the floor. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand. Maybe, actually, I don't want to take your time away, but there is one gentleman for the question.
Thank you. My name is Jimmy Okello from Uganda. I just wanted to find out from Rodora when she was talking about challenges to achieving water security in terms of capability of contractors. Maybe you didn't tell us about the time challenges and financial challenges and mobilizing them, because you'll find in a developing country, you find that consultants for the project inception are not available locally or even within the region. You find consultant has to come from, say, the UK, the United Kingdom for Africa. And then you find experts who do not know how to do the hydrogeological surveys, the water sensors in the region. And you find you have to get somebody from China to come and do that. And also the preparing the tender bids and documents takes a very long time. So what do you have to comment about that situation What do you think is the way forward when you're talking about training the local people?
Yeah. Actually, the challenge that I mentioned with respect to contractors, to drillers, is not because we don't have the capacity in the Philippines. We have the capacity, we have the drillers and contractors, but it is more in the metropolitan, it is more in the city, not in the rural areas. The rural areas are those, sometimes it takes you two days to go to that area because they have to take a horse and then a jeep and then a bus and then, to come to the city. So it is more of, the challenge is more of the availability of the contractors and the willingness of the contractors to do a project in that area. If they are willing, it may be of a higher price already. So it is very advisable now for the local government doing that project to tap the capacity of the local water districts and the local water service providers in the area who are already doing the project themselves. And they are government-owned controlled corporations. So why not tap their expertise and do the projects in the rural areas? So it is actually capacitating those in the rural with those who are in the nearby communities. So they don't have to go to Manila, they don't have to tap in Cebu or in Davao, but also within the area. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate indeed for the panelists for your deliberations and interventions. Actually, and then thank you very much for your understanding. I apologize for the delay. Thank you, and enjoy the lunch. Thank you.